Okay, we'll get started. My name is Matt Gray, and I work at Clockwork, and I'm here to talk about Coder Dojo as part of teaching kids to code. With me is Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca Schatz from Code Savvy. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for your interest in this issue. We've got 900,000 school kids in Minnesota, and practically none of them are learning to code. We can change that. We need your help. Can you hear me incidentally? Okay. A couple of questions about you. How many of you are professional coders here? Okay. How many of you know how to code somehow, even if you're not professional coders? So how old were you when you did learn how to code? How many, show of hands, how many under 10 years old? Cool. How many under 12? Under 15? When you were older than 15? Most of you. Cool. So did you learn in some kind of formal situation, like in college or high school? Totally on your own? Okay. Oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to advance slides. What? Who doesn't know how to code? Great.
It's okay.
We want teaching you, right. If you don't know, you teach is what it's. Any real teachers here? I mean, professional teachers? Good.
Fantastic.
Thank you. We need you. We want you. How many of you have kids? Excellent. Okay, see, you're experts. So why teach kids to code? Well, it's fun. There's jobs. You can make things. You can do stuff. You can change the world. Why not learn how to code? It helps you learn how to think as well. But what I want to show you is what happens when you do teach kids to code. This is Zora Ball. She's 7 years old. She's a first grader at a charter school in Philadelphia. And she created a mobile app called Vampire Diamonds. She, is the youngest kid in the world to commercialize a mobile app. She learned in an after-school program, a Saturday enrichment program. And she just like vampires and diamonds. You try to find the diamonds and avoid the vampires. Here's a kid who was 13 at this time. He's now 14, named Shane Karan. He invented a program that is also commercialized called Libramatic. What he noticed is that the librarians in his school didn't really have the tools that they needed to take care of the books, so he invented ways that they could just do it with smartphones. A quote from Shane is, he's self-taught, but he said, without Coder Dojo, it would have taken twice as long to learn how to code properly. A quote from Zora's teacher is, the real magic is seeing young children who have no coding skills pick up the language. Once you explain it to them, I think you will see a tsunami of Zora balls. One more example. This is a team of girls from a high school in LA that joined a contest called Technovation, where they were encouraged and helped to build mobile apps. Girls love their cell phones. So this group built a pregnancy app where you could figure out where to go if you were pregnant, how to talk to your boyfriend about it, or how to talk to your parents about it, or where to get tested, or what to do, or how to avoid being pregnant. Which points out one of many good reasons for bringing new communities into the coding world. They invent stuff that wouldn't have been invented otherwise. Another really good reason is when you have a diverse team of designers on any issue, you come out with better, more robust results. Kids aren't learning in school. This is a terrible graphic to put up, but it's from a report from the Computer Science Teachers of America that ranked the computing standards in each state. Minnesota doesn't really have any computing standards. Many other states do. So that wound us up in a rank of 47th out of 50 states. It does not mean that we don't have high-quality programs in Minnesota. We do have many, but there are no state standards. I recently found out that Minnetonka is starting a program where every kid in Minnetonka schools is going to learn to code. So there's some promising signs, but mostly kids are not learning in school. To be fair, it's a tough problem. The whole of England, for instance, had a computer curriculum that they did in their schools, but they just abolished the whole thing because the Secretary of Education said, this is demotivating and dull. So they axed the whole thing and are recreating it and restarting in a couple of years. Okay, so kids aren't learning in school, but there are lots of ways to learn throughout the world. Informal programs, out-of-school programs are starting up. Today we're going to show you two of the best, and I'm also going to give you some pointers of how kids learn and how to help them learn. So to start out, from Dublin, Ireland to Minneapolis, Minnesota, one of the most informal, most interesting, and most effective programs, Coder Dojo. Don't forget the R, Coder Dojo. Matt.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I'm going to take you through Coder Dojo and the effort that is getting started here in the Twin Cities. It is underway, and in fact, it's something that you can very easily participate in and be a part of. So I'm going to take you through what we're doing. So what does it do? Well, a Coder Dojo gives kids a free, fun, and safe place to learn programming from mentors and each other. It's a workshop. It's an environment, an open environment, where kids can come in with problems to solve or things that they want to learn, games that they want to build, and work with professional engineers and other mentors to help them get past their roadblocks and to start learning and working with cool stuff. A few facts. So Coder Dojo was founded in 2011 in Ireland by a teenager by the name of James Welton. He was recently profiled in Forbes for their Distinguished People Under 30. He was a teenager at the time when he founded this. Now, it was only 2011. The movement has since grown. It's now global. It's in 22 countries. And so Coder Dojos have sprouted up everywhere, particularly still in Ireland, because that's where it began. If you look at the Coder Dojo directory, you'll see quite an amazing density there in Ireland. There are only a few restrictions about Coder Dojo, which is perhaps, I think, one of the reasons it spread so effectively. It has to be free. No money can change hands. Kids should not have to be able to pay to come into a Coder Dojo and to learn and to have that experience. Each dojo is different. So what works for one Coder Dojo may not work for another, and that's totally okay. In fact, it's encouraged. The movement really encourages dojos to share what works, but not really to mandate what works and say, oh, you have to run your Coder Dojo this way. Oh, and that photo is actually by another founder of Coder Dojo, Bill Liao, in Cork. So there's only one real hard and fast rule about Coder Dojo. Be cool. Be cool. Be cool to one another. Be an example to the students, to the kids that are coming in, so that the environment of Coder Dojo is one that's very productive and welcoming and fun. So why? Why create Coder Dojo? Why get this started here in the Twin Cities? Well, you heard what Rebecca mentioned about how we're doing as a state. I mean, Texas is beating us in terms of educational standards. And look around you. We're at MinneBar here, an amazing community-powered event. We have so many tech companies in the area. We have large companies. So much of the Fortune 500 has headquarters here. We should have a Coder Dojo. I think back to my youth and when I learned programming. And yeah, I was noodling around with QBasic but I had the opportunity to audit a college course when I was very young, about Coder Dojo age. And I feel like it really made an impact and changed the way I thought about programming and how I could continue to move forward. And it really leveled up the types of problems that I could start solving with my code. If such a thing like Coder Dojo was around when I was a kid, I would have leapt at the opportunity. And it would have meant that more than just kids like me would have had the chance to have that professional interaction with real software engineers and others who know the space, so that they can get unstuck, so they can keep moving forward, so that they can be inspired. So what it's really about, though, is mentoring kids. It is providing that guidance, that support. Because when you think about it, as professional engineers, so many of you in this room have written lines of code. And so you all know what happens when you write a line of code. Inevitably, you're going to hit some red-tinted message that says something fatal happened, and it can be a very negative experience. The work of being a software engineer is failing. If you are doing it right, you are generating lots of errors. I always joke that at Clockwork, I know when my programmers are working when I see the stream of fatal errors from our development environments, because that means they're running code that didn't work the first time. And as a first-timer, as a kid, that can be really intimidating. You know, some kids want to pick up the guitar and immediately be amazing at playing guitar, and the computer can be a really intimidating environment. Plus, I think mentors can really help kids navigate how to find out information, how to get unstuck, how to get to the next part of their problem. We work in a community where oftentimes if you ask a question the wrong way, you're going to get an RTFM type response, something very negative. And that could really turn somebody off who is 10, 12, 14, and really is a tabula rasa, blank slate. And we don't want that. We want to bring more people, more minds, more ideas into the space. So part of the literature that Coder Dojo provides is they suggest be that admiring grandparent, okay? So you've probably had an experience with a grandparent where you may have drawn something as a kid and they gave you some positive feedback and encouragement. Now, it was probably a bad drawing if it was one of your first, but nonetheless, you got some encouragement, maybe some constructive criticism on it, and we recognize that you need that encouragement, that positive feedback in something like drawing or programming, because Leonardo da Vinci did not spring out of the womb and paint the Mona Lisa, and some encouragement and reinforcement is necessary there. So what does a Coder Dojo look like? Well, I don't actually know yet firsthand because our first session is next Saturday at 2 p.m. We've got a sold-out session with many mentors, but the Coder Dojo website says if you are doing it right, it should look like inspiring chaos, because the environment is kid-led. It's about learning through exploration and play. And that's why I think Coder Dojo can serve as an important complement to, but not replacement for, primary and secondary education in computer science. So part of my hope for this movement is to encourage, inspire, and nurture our educators and school systems to really embrace computer science as an important part of the curriculum. So getting started is actually not that difficult. The main ingredient that you need is passion, enthusiasm, but of course some tools and resources and time certainly help. Main ingredients are space, power, and internet. We've got a head start on that. My company Clockwork is donating all of that so that we have a space for the first chapter. But again, we've got 1,000 attendees here at MinneBar. We have an impressive community. Look at the size of the metro area. I know that there is room for growth. If you look at the density of dojos in Ireland, I know that our community, our metro, can support more chapters if we grow carefully and responsibly, but we can reach a lot of students that way. And so that's my hope with this talk, is that you'll learn a little bit about what we're doing and might be inspired to help out. They didn't pay me to say this, but Eventbrite is amazing and awesome. It takes so much pain and hassle out of figuring out who's going to your dojo, registration, name tags, highly recommended. Let's talk about the tech. So in planning for this, it was really interesting meeting with the mentors and gathering because, okay, well, what do we focus on? Do we come up with curriculum? Do we just, are we open to whatever walks in the door in terms of technology that kids want to learn or use? And one of the most inspiring things that has happened to me in this process was working with our team of mentors. Are there any mentors in the audience? If so, raise your hand. Awesome. Thank you. One of the most inspiring things for me was asking mentors after we had talked about technologies and skills. Now, everyone on our team spans a really broad range of skill sets and backgrounds, but when I asked, if a kid comes in, regardless of the technology, regardless of the editor or environment or problem, who is just willing to dive in and help, to be that sort of wild card mentor? Every hand in the room went up. So the mentors are committed to learning, and I think that when a mentor is pushed outside of their comfort zone, it's actually a really good thing because they are uniquely suited to help understand where the kid is coming from, where the student is, if they've never written a line of Java before, but they desperately want to mod Minecraft. So let's go through some tech. We've got Scratch, which is a visual programming language atop of Squeak, which itself is based on Smalltalk. Scratch comes to us from MIT. It is a tool designed to teach kids how to program. It's got a visual sort of Lego block snap together programming, but it's very powerful. It's got message passing, actors, and a stage with sprites that makes it really easy to get visual feedback quickly. We have web building tools, so like Mozilla Thimble, where you have a live editing environment where you can work on a web page, publish it, and share it with your friends. A lot of our Coder Dojo students are interested in building websites. We have the Raspberry Pi. I didn't talk much about hardware, but the Pi is another platform that is designed for teaching like Scratch. And the Pi really presents an opportunity for kids to look at the computer as something a bit demystified. It's not like this super expensive thing that your parents are going to get mad at if you drop it. It can be a credit card-sized circuit board that only costs $35 or so. And so we want to explore opportunities for our students to learn hardware hacking and to run Python and Scratch off the Pi. Of course, we have Arduino. We can't mention hardware without Arduino, a fantastic platform for working with sensors. Different strengths than the Raspberry Pi, but certainly something that we were looking at and several students have indicated interest in. We have, of course, Minecraft. If you are a kid of a certain age or an adult of a certain level of geekiness, you know Minecraft. You may be in recovery. Minecraft is available on the Raspberry Pi, and on the Pi, it has an API in two forms. It's got a Java and a Python API. And I think this is really interesting because kids know the world, the virtual world inside of Minecraft, but showing them how they can manipulate that virtual world in compelling ways using programming, I think is really, really exciting. And of course, there's other mods. One allows JavaScript to be used as well. So there's some more tools. We have CodePen, Dablet. These are tools that let you do live editing, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, and then share those. Then there's some more kid-oriented ones, like the Mozilla Hackasaurus with X-ray goggles, a kind of engaging way to show kids, look, if you go on the web, you can peer into the inner workings of any website's front-end development and maybe even make some changes of your own, which I think is really cool from a mad scientist kind of perspective, as well as like kids like to mess with stuff, and so often they're told, no, don't mess with that, but they can mess with any page on the web. I think that's great. There's more than I can talk about here. Please see codesavvy.org. Rebecca has collected a great set of resources. A little about our Coder Dojo so far as I wrap up. We've got about 20 mentors. Now, not everybody can attend every single weekend, but mentors are our limiting factor in that we want to keep the ratio low of students to mentors so that students can be very well supported. Right now we're shooting for 3 students for every mentor and pairing up mentors into so-called dynamic duos. So we have these pods of kids and mentors. First event, as I said, is next Saturday. We have 22 kids signed up. Half of them are girls, which I think is totally awesome. You compare that to the demographics of our mentor population, and you can really see that there's definitely a gender divide in tech. So I'm really encouraged and excited that we're seeing equal participation there. We plan to do weekly events, and we have very enthusiastic champions. You're looking at one of them. The reason I'm telling you this is because this is all getting started. We have figured out a lot of what's necessary to get this off the ground. So the height of the barrier to participation on your part is relatively low because we've done a lot of the painful groundwork to get things going. So hey, if you want in, there are lots of ways you can help. We need hardware like laptops for students that don't have access to bring one in. We don't want Coder Dojo to only be about affluent, tech-minded, children of tech-minded parents. We want it to be open to anyone who wants to learn to code or who might never have the opportunity. You can spread the word on your social networks. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. You can become a mentor, which is probably the most powerful, or a volunteer, which are the most powerful ways that you can help us get this movement off the ground. The more mentors we have, the more students we can serve, and then we can look at expanding to additional chapters. Our website is at the bottom of the screen, coderdojotc.org. We need champions, we need mentors, we need volunteers, we need students, parents. So please give back, make a difference if this talk inspired you, and inspire our youth to code. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Matt. We're starting with 22 kids. As I said, there's 915,000 kids in Minnesota, so there's a lot of room to grow. And what better audience to start than right here?
When we sold out in 24 hours, and we have kids on the wait list, so
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly, yeah.
Yeah, there's room to grow. I mean, kids love coding. I want to say a couple of things about online learning. Most things, you know, you're all web savvy. I'm going to turn you over to two different websites. One is called Coderdojo. These are the people that did that video with Bill Gates. And how many people saw their Here's Why You Should Learn to Code video? It's worth watching, and it's the first thing you come to on their screen. My favorite is the 9-minute version of the video, which starts with kids asking them what they want to be when they grow up. Excuse me. And they want to be, you know, doctors, or they want to be musicians, or they want to be tennis players, or they want to be mermaids. And then they ask them, well, how about a computer, a software engineer? And nobody knows what it is, much less wants to be it. So good video, but also a very good resource list, which is down below this, that talks about, first it gives you 4 good starting possibilities: Scratch, Code Academy, Khan Academy, and Code HS, Code High School, that you can play with in a live development environment right there. But then there are lots of resources down below that. My other favorite is codesavvy.org. And currently, you have to type in www, because I haven't figured out how to help me, somebody. I learned to program using paper tape and punch cards and Fortran decades ago. Then I went into another industry, so I'm just coming back in. And it's a lot easier now than it used to be. Anyhow, Code Savvy is based on Blogger, you know. But it has, if you check the third menu thing, it has a whole long Learn to Code section with which I've tried to solve some of the problems that people have when they start learning online. Like it puts you immediately in this great live environment, but you never learn how to, like, edit something in the real world or submit it. So it was a very exciting revelation to me when I realized you can just drag that thing onto your browser button and it like starts up right there. I mean, that was fantastic. So one of the, even when you're learning online, one of the great, kids need a mentor and need a helping hand, even if they're in one of these wonderful online systems. So I want to say a little bit more about that, about how you are critically important to helping kids or helping yourself learn how to code. There's 3 things that make a great learning environment. One is that it's truly hands-on. This is not rocket science, but it's so infrequently done that I just wanted to mention it. The kid themselves, himself, herself, has to be physically doing it, has to be physically coming up with the ideas. It's very easy, especially when you're as brilliant and knowledgeable as you all are, to just, oh, here, I'll help you. Oh, no, do it this way. Oh, honey, you know, I'll do that for you. Don't do that. You know, the kid has to be doing it hands-on. Has to be real problems that are interest-based. If you have a kid that wants to, whatever, you know, change the monster on Minecraft to something else, or, you know, whatever the kid wants to do will be so much more inspiring than anything you could invent. There will be rough spots. The first one is fear. You know, think back to the first time you were in a totally new environment learning something totally new that was not necessarily easy for you. You're just afraid you're going to look stupid. I'm stupid. It's stupid. Who cares? I don't want to do this. So that's one of the humps you have to get over. And there are 4 more rough spots: in entry, in starting up and getting going, and in being stuck. I want to talk first about entry because we lose a lot of kids. We lose a lot of people there. I'm starting from the bottom up. It has to be accessible. That means they have to know about it, it has to exist, it has to be someplace they can get to in their community. It has to be accepting. Yeah, we'll take you, it's good, you should come and learn how too. But it has to be more than accepting, it has to be welcoming. We're glad you're here, we're so pleased you showed up. But go even a step higher than that, be inviting or encouraging. Many kids are just not going to do it, even if it's there right in front of their face, unless you say, you would really like this. Come on in, do it. Or, you did that great. You're ready for the next step. Why don't you give it a try? I found this true of all kids, especially kids that find themselves in the minority in whatever group. If it's mostly girls, the guys are a little more attentive. If it's mostly guys, the girls are more attentive. If it's mostly white people, the black people are more attentive, and so on. So actively encouraging, actively inviting can make a huge difference. Okay, enough on that. Oh, I went backwards instead of forwards.
There you go.
Next one. Okay. Where to start? Where do you start? And that's where something like Code.org or Code Savvy can help you. Because you go into this community, I want to build a website. Well, do I do WordPress? Do I do Tumblr? Do I do Dreamweaver? Do I do Aptana? Do I learn CSS? Or, you need somebody, a helping, guiding hand that'll show you. Start here. You need some help getting going, and I have this great quote from Eben Upton, who's the creator of the Raspberry Pi, who's been doing this all over Britain. He says there's a 5 to 10 minute period at the start of any child's engagement with programming where it all seems baffling and complicated. Once they've made their first couple of modifications to the program and they've gotten a good results, that's what gets you hooked. Okay, your job is to get them hooked. And I think Eben is right. It only takes about 10 minutes. So, the whole issue boils down to getting them through that first 10 minutes. The other place people get stuck is, the other rough spot is when you get stuck. It's those fail messages that come out. And if you're a kid, you think, fail, I failed, it's an F, that's bad, I'm dumb. One of the wonderful things about computer technology is it's self-healing. Right there on your same screen, you can get up and you don't need to go to the hardware store for additional parts. You can find out right then. Let's Google it together. Let's do this. So teaching them how to find their way out of problems is one of the best things you can do for a kid. It takes a lot of courage to learn something new. Kids need a lot of encouragement. Both of those words have that C-O-U-R, which is like the French word, which I can't pronounce, coeur, which means heart. Matt talked about that admiring grandparent. You're actually better than that. You're like the cool uncle or the cool aunt. That part of what is really meaningful to the kid is an adult that's not their parent is there for them. Thinks they're brilliant, wants to help them. That means a lot to kids, and kids today are not getting enough of that. But don't overhelp. I talked about it. Don't do it for them. Help them through that first 10 minutes, but then let them fly and tell them they're ready to fly. I just want to talk about something that education needs, that teachers talk a lot about this day, called habits of mind. It's also sometimes called character, but I don't like using that because that seems like a moral issue rather than a performance issue. That's my favorite book on this by Paul Tough, which is probably more than you want to know about it. But it's talking about those human characteristics that help us learn, that help us succeed. When you talk about adults, you talk about things like drive. When you talk about children, you talk about things like self-control. There's this great experiment where they gave a bunch of, it's a sociological experiment. You put a child in a room with a marshmallow, and you say, here's this marshmallow. If you can wait 15 minutes till I come back, I'll give you 2 marshmallows to eat. But if you want to eat that marshmallow anytime, you can just do it. And so they tracked, how many kids sit and wait for 2 marshmallows and what techniques do they use to do that. And it turns out the kids that can wait 15 minutes for the marshmallow regardless of their intellect, totally across any other, criteria. You can say the kids that can wait 15 minutes for the marshmallow score 200 points better on the SAT 10 years later than the kids that don't. Okay, the SAT is only on an 800-point score, so they're scoring remarkably better just because they have that self-control, that persistence, that confidence, that optimism, that vision of what they want to do. So very significant, and it's one of the things that computing is a great place to learn, because most things that kids do in school are just not that hard. They chew them up. Here's a B. It's pronounced B. It's all chopped up. And in computer science, suddenly you have the whole world. So you really need those habits of mind. Oh, okay. This is, well, many things are my favorite, but this is really one of my favorites. This is a program that started in San Francisco by an organization called Iridescent. We're bringing it to the Twin Cities starting next year. I need your help. It's for girls only, for high school or junior high school girls, and they build mobile apps from scratch, even if they've never done anything like that before. They not only code them, they identify a problem in their community that they think could be solved by a mobile app. They design it by talking to whoever's going to use it. They code it. They develop a business plan and a budget and a marketing plan for it, and they present this to a panel of venture capitalists. In the early stages, it's fake venture capitalists, but the finalists present to real venture capitalists, and the winning team gets $10,000 to commercialize their app. So it's this fantastic program for high school girls. We're starting it next fall. I need lots of help with it. It's after school in high school, so it's at a time that's difficult for many professionals to help with, but they've also figured out how to do it late enough in the day or on Saturdays. It has a coach from each school, not necessarily technical, and it has mentors from the technology community. Mentors that know how to code, mentors that know how to design projects, mentors that can help these young women make a good presentation. There's great training for the mentors. It starts out with app days in the fall where it's a one-day thing and they're teaching all these girls how to make apps just so they can see this is possible. I might be able to do it. It might be fun. The teams are up to 5 girls each. Then starting in January, they do like this 12-week curriculum or 12-week program that starts with how do you identify an issue and then moves on to how do you code it. They use App Inventor from MIT, which is another block-oriented, easy entry program. But as the girls get more capable, they're allowed to use any software they want to. As I said, there's good online support. We're having trouble doing this. Where do we find information about this? And there's wonderful prizes. It is only reaching, it's in its 4th year. It's reaching 1,000 girls this year, worldwide. There's teams in Brazil. There's teams in Yemen. I want to start 10 teams next year and then double it every year. If we do that for 10 years, we'll be reaching 10% of the girls, high school girls in Minnesota, high school young women. Okay, so why are we doing this? This is a slide from Code.org, and it just simply shows there's more jobs out there than there are computer science people filling the jobs. Another reason that we're doing this is equity. This is Barbie and Ken, if you didn't play with dolls. The Barbie is actually computer engineer Barbie. Barbie has 126 different careers, and the latest one a couple of years ago was computer engineer. I don't know any computer engineers that wear capri pants, but there probably are some. But they, I learned to code in the 70s when I was in high school, and when I entered the workforce in the early 80s, there were 37% women in it. I mean, there were more guys than women, but it was pretty normal. Now, the national average is 12% in computer science. programs. If you think Minnesota is any better, it is not. At the University of Minnesota here, it's barely 10%. Okay? And this is just gender. If you look at ethnic, whoa, we are mega failing in Minnesota in lots of different ways. So Matt pointed out that we have 50% girls in Coder Dojo. I mean, if you do some things right, if you start in the right place, if you try on this is a solvable problem. If you look at computer science departments like MIT or Olin or Harvey Mudd, they have 40, 45% girls. If you look at most of the Coder Dojos, it's similar. So anyhow, start young is a good way to solve this one. One more. Okay. Another reason to do it is it's so fun. I mean, kids love coding. And the Code.org video had a lot of people talking about why they liked learning to code. And one of the quotes was from Drew Houston, who started Dropbox. He said, it's the closest thing we have to a superpower. And I think kids really respond to that. Plus, I need a picture of a white guy, and I hadn't had any other pictures here of a white guy. So. Okay, we need you. You can help. There are lots of reasons to not volunteer. The biggest one is lack of time. But as it turns out, when they do surveys, the biggest reason people don't volunteer is that they've never been asked. So I'm asking you here and now, help us with Coder Dojo. Come and mentor. Bring us some kids. Bring us your old laptops. We need some flash drives. Help with Technovation Challenge. I need lots of things. I need pretend venture capitalists. I need people to help with the app days. I need mentors, supporters of various kind. If anybody's interested in sponsoring it, we need a little bit of money. Or go off online, find a kid, help them learn how to code. You share what you're doing. Computer professionals are typically introverts, so it's not like we're going to, but let your light shine. Go for it. So we've got 2 minutes for questions.
All right.
Absolutely. Here it comes. There's those, or you can just go to Code Savvy or Coder Dojo TC, but there's our emails, there's our Twitters. We're both big Twitter fans. Yes?
I actually signed my daughter up.
Woo-hoo!
Fantastic.
What's the age breakdown that you guys have right now?
You know, I've got a histogram I can pull up.
There's a big bump of 10-year-olds.
Yep.
And we don't know actually if they're all 10-year-olds or if they're younger and they just pretended they were 10 because we said it as 10 to 14. Big bump of 10-year-olds, then 11, 12, couple of 14-year-olds, one 16-year-old. So it's mostly around age 10. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yes. So, although, I mean, honestly, again, inspiring chaos. So a lot of the mentor training is just becoming comfortable with your team of supporting mentors, because it's not just about supporting and mentoring the students. As mentors, we need to have each other's backs. That's why we have dynamic duos, and that's why we're looking at, as we bring in new mentors into the program, pairing them up with experienced mentors who've been through a Coder Dojo or two so that they have lots and lots of support. But yes, I mean, as part of that, we need to do some like housekeeping stuff, like background checks. So we need to gather information, we meet, we all talk, and like I said, it really, just talking with the mentors inspired me, so I can't wait until next Saturday. So we'd love to have you as a mentor.
We did do a little more. We did like a Kid 101 session. You know, what do you do if a kid melts down? What do you do if a kid, you know, behaves inappropriately? So we do some of that, and also we're inventing it as we go. We have some people very experienced with working with kids. We have a lot of people experienced with the code. So between us all, we'll make it work.
My question is security aspect.
Yes. Yes.
Are we asking the mentors to have a security background?
Yes.
We're not asking them. We're telling them. Yeah.
Yeah, safety comes first. But
Wait, was that the full part of your question? Yeah.
Yep.
Also, we have a lot of people from Clockwork, which is where we're hosting it, who are very familiar with the environment, who are just like continually casing to make sure, that nothing horrible happens. But also, if a kid is close to melting down, we catch them before they melt down and things like that. So we're mentor heavy at this
And that's
point.
also why we need volunteers to keep the event running smoothly, to make sure if somebody needs to find the bathroom or just needs some help, it doesn't have to be about programming. We need that support structure as well. So it's okay if you don't know how to code. Or if you just want to come to the event as an observer or volunteer, help us and then decide if you want to become a mentor.
One here and then one
yeah.
there.
I just want to toss in a plug for another program that's great, Teaching Girls program, High Tech Kids.
Yes, yeah,
Programming with Lego robotics.
Cool.
yes. Yeah, High Tech Kids is fantastic. And we link to them on the Code Savvy site. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, kids really gravitate to it, and it's easier now than it was when we all learned. I mean, there are these nice live environments where you change a little something, you see it right away. Yeah, thank you. Thank
We're
you
really
for coming.
excited. We'd
Other
love to have your
questions?
help.
Oh, our next audience
Yep.
is coming. Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Ask
you,
us
everyone.
afterwards.